Well, I'm working on mounting the hardware today, and we'll zoom in here a little bit. So we'll pick one. So they've been marked out on these drawers, and each one, of course, is down a little bit further from the top, and they're centered, and that's what we're going to do. So there we go. Back up a little bit. So this is the hardware that I got from Optimum Brass, and they're sand cast brass, and they're not perfect. The tip of these two things are not parallel to each other. So I figured I would adjust the tilt of the back plate so that it was even. Actually, it's this one here. Even at the top. Like so. And if you look at the line, it's slightly above the center, but that's how it's going to look. The brasses have square holes in them, in the knobs, which go in there. Have square, little round knobs on the front, and then square, and then of course round at the back, and they're threaded. So I'll drill some holes and then have to pare out the fronts so that they're square, and then attach them from the back. So I've got a couple more to mark up, and we'll be done. Well, positioning the hardware on the large drawer is a little more complicated than the small drawers because of the shells and the lock. So this one over here has a lock behind it, so the center has to be where the pin is going to be, as well as situated between the two shells. The shells have to match the blocking on the drawers below it. So this is all positioned the way it should. So these are centered from the edge, and centered from the top. So I'm happy with where they're at, so I've marked them off. This will be a false locking drawer on this side, but this is where the holes will go for the handles. Well, I've finally completed carving the two shells, and I've got them just up here for the moment so that I could see how they looked. And the hardware is marked off in here. So I think the first thing I'm going to do is put in the lock and then drill the holes for the handles. Well, I'm putting in the lock now, and what I had done is marked out on the face where I wanted the keyhole to exist. On the front, which would be about like that, and then I drilled a small pilot hole clear through, and this is supposed to be exactly 3/4 of an inch, which is where the lock pin is from the top lip. So I measured to make sure the drill bit went through straight, and then I laid the lines out using the lock itself as a template, and you can see here the actual works of the lock go there. So then once it was marked out, I just incised the line along there with my chisel to get it started, and I'm using my hand router plane. Now to take a little off at a time, and I'll stop when I get down here. So that'll fit where the lock is, and then once I've got that settled, then I'll use the same router plane to follow along the outside edge here until this thing fits in there flush. Then I'll make the hole bigger and work from the front. Well, I've mounted two of the plates here and handles after cutting the mortise for the lock, and it was a bit challenging. The key will fall out there. I don't know if you can see it here or not, but the lock got in the way of the holes for the hinges. So what I did is I tapped the wood with the thread for the balls and threaded them into the wood. So I think that'll hold pretty well. And then over here they're countersunk with a Forstner bit so that I can get the nuts onto them. The posts aren't long enough to fit through. This is 1 1/8 drawer front. So we have a small hole drilled in the front and then the larger hole with the Forstner bit in the back. So that process will be repeated because these are all 1 1/8 here. So drill a small pilot hole in the beginning to locate the Forstner, drill it from the back, and then enlarge the hole in the front to make it fit. Well, there we are. The hardware is mounted, and I didn't put the keyhole escutcheon back on the door inside, but it was on there once before, so we're all set. Well, I finished up the chest today, so the one thing I wanted to show you here was the drawer stops. So what I did was glued in a 1/16 of an inch piece of wood here, piece of the mahogany that fits underneath the drawer, and it comes to rest just behind the front, and that's the proper way of stopping the drawers, because if you stop them from behind, the chest moves in and out with the weather, and so the edge of where the drawer finishes is in a different spot. So the other thing I made was the 2 shelves that belong in the center there, and they're 3/16 of an inch thick, and they fit into dados that I had cut way back in the beginning, so they run front to back. And I made the back of it, and we're gonna move the so there is the back, and it's just a regular poplar shiplap siding. It goes in like so, and there's 2 other pieces here, and that'll be nailed on. So that finishes it up. The construction's complete, and all we got to do is do the finishing now.